Thursday, May 17th. I'm Rim, and this is Geeknights. Tonight we make fun of those crackpots with their crazy conspiracy theories.
Let's do this.
So, somewhat unexpectedly, I had a brush with death today at work.
A brush with death, you say? Was it another exploding power supply?
No, it was an actual brush with death, as opposed to a hilarious brush with death.
Well, my day would have been quite interesting if you had died rather than just brushed it.
Yes, luckily I grabbed it with 2 fingers instead of my whole hand, and thus I was spared death.
It was electricity then, wasn't it?
So you see, I was going down into the basement of this building. And in the basement is a big, gigantic metal rack cabinet with doors on it, and inside of that is a rack, and attached to the rack are a whole bunch of switches and routers and networking equipment. And no one has opened this rack or bothered with it for many, many months because it works just fine. And in fact, I was only going down there to count how many PCs were plugged into it and how many things were patched down and that sort of thing for a future upgrade. So I go down there, and I open the door, and I look in, and I reach over, and I grab the handle to this cabinet to open it. And suddenly I feel like the room is shaking. And then I realize that, no, my hand is shaking. And then I realize that, no, my hand is not shaking. I'm just being filled with 120 volts.
Awesome.
And with a bit of effort, I pull myself away.
Yeah, I wonder what does that, because like one time I was holding a light switch, in the wall, and it the electricity went in one finger and out the other, back into the wall. It was sort of like a loop between my thumb and forefinger. And it's like hard to let go. It's sort of like magnets.
Actually, that's the reason that generally when you're working with electricity, 120 volts is a lot more dangerous than 220. Because with 110, 120, when the voltage goes through you, it tends to cause your muscles to tense up and keep hold of whatever you're holding on to.
That's how it works.
Yep, but 220, it's so much power right away that more likely it's going to spark and throw you away from it. In fact, my grandpa almost died when he was a kid. He didn't realize there was a big rope hanging from a tree, but it was actually a down power line, and he went to go Tarzan on it. And instead, he just hung there, dying of almost being electrocuted. But eventually, his dad came out. By eventually, I mean almost right away, and hit him in the stomach with a log or a brick or something to knock him off of the thing.
I'm glad we're not using DC.
Well, anyway, so and I pull myself off of it, and I fall to the ground. I'm sitting there going, what the fuck? God damn it, son of a bitch. And someone comes in, they're like, something going on? And I'm like, fucking shit, call facilities, and don't go into this room. So I call the engineers, and they come in, and I'm like, yes, there's a voltage leak somewhere. This entire cabinet is electrified. Meanwhile, I point out that all the equipment inside of it's working just fine.
Awesome.
So the guy looks at me and says, yeah, you sure it isn't some static or something? And I'm like,
touch it.
Why don't you
just
test
touch
it? So he pulls out, he's got one of those little testers, and he touches it to it, and he's laughing, and then the light goes bright red, and it goes, beep! And he pulls it away and backs a step up and goes, don't let anyone go in there.
God, people.
So then I take care of all this because I don't know what the procedure is for dealing with deadly voltage filling in a room.
I know the procedure for deadly voltage.
I know my personal procedure.
What's your personal procedure? Let's see if yours is similar to mine.
All right, well, first was don't fucking touch anything else.
That's all right. We're the similar ones there.
Number 2, back out of the room.
Yeah.
Call whatever electrical people and make sure no one goes in.
Yeah.
And then I went back into the room and looked around to see if I could identify what was going on and see if I could just pull the plug outside of this thing that's plugging the whole thing into the wall and then back away.
Mm-hmm. And
I didn't because I didn't know what the procedure is for taking down an entire building's network infrastructure. It's out of the blue, especially since it was technically all up and working.
Yeah.
Worse, the voltage leak was coming from a faulty PDU stuck on the inside of it. That PDU was connected to the UPS.
Uh-oh.
And the whole thing wasn't grounded for some reason. So I filled out the OSHA forms, and I did the whole deal. They sent me to the doctor. The doctor looked at me.
Well, you're in a hospital, right? So
yeah, so I just walked over to the actual hospital out of the office, and I was like, yeah, I just got shocked. Pretty bad.
So the doctor goes, all right, let's look at this. Beep, beep. beep, you're living. You're good.
Yeah, well, they checked me out. Actually, they did a bunch of tests to see if my hand had all the strength, because I pointed out that the voltage just went through my middle finger and my ring finger.
That puts me on a little tangent here, but I realized why people going to the emergency room cost hospitals so much money.
Oh, I can tell you in great detail.
Well,
why,
it's
but
like
go
I didn't
on.
realize quite, that hospitals lose all their money because if you show up to the emergency room, whether you have insurance or not, they'll do something for you.
Well, they have to do something. They
Yes.
don't want to sometimes.
Yes.
And-
Even if you go in with like a cold, they have to do something because you went to the emergency room.
And I read a study recently that I don't know which hospital it was for because I just read it briefly, but one hospital did a study and determined that fewer than 1/4 of any of the people who come into an emergency room had anything even remotely close to an emergency.
Yeah, they really should be allowed to just say, no, you're not an emergency, go away. But they can't.
No, you know what they do usually? If you ever go to an emergency room and you have to wait 4 hours to get treated, that means that you're one of those assholes and it wasn't an emergency.
Yeah.
Because what they do is they make you wait hoping that you'll just go away.
Yep. But anyway, when you go to emergency room, no matter what it's for, even if you have a cold, they will run basically all sorts of crazy tests to make sure because you came to the emergency room. So they're assuming that if you came here, there's something seriously wrong with you.
Actually,
more
Scott,
than usual.
the term is triage.
Yeah.
And what that means is that they'll take you in and they'll determine if you're in imminent danger of death or permanent disability or a serious turn for the worse or anything that's dangerous to you or others.
Yeah.
And actually, the basic tests are very simple and don't cost anything.
But then when they actually get around to taking care of you, even if you have to wait 4 hours, they will run tests on you that are expensive and time consuming.
Actually, not always. The only test they ran on me was an EKG, and the only reason they did that was as a precaution. They didn't do anything else other than, blood pressure.
Yeah, but that's because you went in with electricity cushioning. So
Yep.
that's what they check you with,
Now,
is an EKG.
they did see something in my EKG where she looked at it for a while, and then she said, I'm going to get a second opinion. We'll call you back.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what that's all about, but the interesting part of this story, not that I had a brush with death, because I don't care about that, but I need to take a moment to preen in front of the crowds, the audience of Geek Nights.
Mm-hmm.
Because, so she's checking, my pulse and everything, and my blood pressure, and while she's checking my pulse the first time, she stops, shakes her head, tries it again. And then she tries my other arm. And then she pauses and says, "Are you an athlete?"
Yeah.
And I said, not really. She's like, well, do you run a lot or anything? I'm like, yeah. And she says, your heart rate's super low. That means you're either a professional athlete or you have a serious problem.
The second one.
Actually, no, because all the rest of the test and at the end of the exam, I was told by the doctor that I am perhaps the optimal picture of health for a 25-year-old man.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I'm sure. With your... and your...
Oh, you mean my allergies?
Yeah. That's not the optimal picture of health.
Well, in terms of, I guess, cardio health or muscles or heart or anything like that, I'm in perfect freaking health.
Yeah, I'm sure. All
Yeah.
right. So, news is outside of Rim getting electrocuted.
Yeah, well, no, I didn't get electrocuted. Mr.
Almost
Period will be
getting
on your head.
electrocuted.
Yeah, because electrocution means very specifically electricity applied unto death.
Uh-huh.
So you cannot say you were electrocuted, because if you say that, you're dead, and you couldn't have said it.
Well,
I
you
guess
were electroshocked.
No, because electroshock is part of electroconvulsive therapy.
Well, I didn't say you received electroshock therapy. I just said you were electroshocked.
I don't know if the term applies terribly well. Though, I do realize now there is a loophole.
Uh-huh.
If, let's say you were shocked and your heart stopped, and then someone revived you, I'll bet you could say electrocuted because your heart was stopped by the electricity. You were killed and then brought back.
Who knows? I actually read that article recently about how even if your heart stops, then it's not quite dead anymore. They can kind of save you. And
Oh yeah, there's been a lot of cases of that.
so we're gotta change what it means to be dead and stuff like that. And it's,
Generally, I'm of the mind that death would be, I would go with something with the brain. When
Yeah.
brain activity ceases and the brain starts to deteriorate physically.
until one day we find out how to bring it back. It's like, there's no activity going on here at all. Click. Oh, wait, no, there he is.
Yep. Part of the problem there is if you have organ donation or anything, you've got to determine if someone's dead before the organs are all useless.
That's why I don't
But you
sign
can't
the
go-
thing.
But you realize that there's no danger of them taking organs out of you if there's any chance you're going to survive.
Just in case.
There's no just in case.
Plus, they can take them anyway, even if I don't sign the thing.
Not really.
Whatever.
No, they can't. So you're just being a dick.
That's fine. I'll be dead. What do I care?
See, it's funny how you've pretty much come all the way around to nihilism in your philosophy over the last several years.
It changes every day. What can I?
No, it's been pretty consistently nihilism for at least the last year.
I don't know. I think it changes all the time.
Yeah, but for the last year, nihilism.
Oh well, maybe next year will be the year of I don't know, something else.
Dadaism? Anyway, what do you got in the news?
So to get weird and sort of non-geek nights here, I've got a news about sports. But wait, and it's actually a sport I care nothing about: basketball. Wait.
Granted, I kind of like women's college basketball.
No, this is the NBA here. The worst of all basketballs.
I'd rather watch kids in the street playing basketball than the NBA.
I agree. But something happened interesting here that I think we can bring back to the old game theory type stuff, and it's pretty interesting. So, NBA right now, I'm pretty sure it's like whoever wins the current series go to the finals. I'm not paying too much attention.
I have no idea how the NBA works.
There's a playoffs, and you do 3 out of 5 series or 4 out of 7 series, and then eventually there's a finals, which is a 4 out of 7 series, and whoever wins that wins.
All I know is the Pistons are doing really well, like they always do.
Yep. So one of the current playoff series going on is the Spurs and the Suns, right?
I can't name either city.
San Antonio and Phoenix.
Huh?
All right. So I can't believe I know all the sports teams, even though I don't give a shit about basketball.
I figured you were just looking in the article.
No, I know.
God, think of this. I'm a really big fan of hockey, and I still don't know a lot of hockey teams that I don't care about.
All right. What's the hockey team in Chicago?
Fuck if I know.
Blackhawks. All
Because
right.
I don't care about the Blackhawks.
No one does, except for Chicago people. Okay. Ooh, I hope we don't have Chicago listeners. Nah, they suck.
Well, yeah, the Blackhawks I like Chicago.
Yeah, it's okay.
Chicago's pretty... When were you in Chicago last?
Never.
Really?
Ever. Not once.
I've actually been in Chicago a whole bunch of times.
All right. So, let me get to this story.
Nah, I'm just going to we're going to stay off topic all night.
In this series, right, the first game, some guy got injured, and he was on it, and they couldn't heal him quick enough to get him back in the game, and that cost him the game, right? In the most recent game, there was some sort of altercation going on, right?
Uh-huh.
And the NBA rule says that if you get off the bench to go run to the altercation, then you're suspended. That's what the rule says. So these two guys, who are pretty important players on one of the teams, they went down the sideline, right? And even though they didn't intend to join in the fight or anything like that, they got off the bench and they were away from their bench when there was the fight going on. Even if they weren't going to get in the fight, but the rule says that they would get suspended, and they did.
So what if you were out taking a leak?
People are basically up in arms because they consider these two teams to be the best teams this year. And it's a shame because they're complaining like, oh, why didn't they reseed? This should be the finals, not the semifinals or whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Everyone complains about that every year in every sport.
I know. But the point is that now, because they've decided to go by the letter of the law instead of using common sense in applying the rules, they've basically ruined the whole NBA playoffs this year by taking two very important players off one of the best teams.
God, I would get a player to start some shit really close to the other benches and hope that they all stand up.
Actually, I listened to an interview because I listen to PTI every day, which is an ESPN radio, whatever, and they had the commissioner of the NBA on talking about it, right? Because it was such a big deal. They interviewed him for like half the show, and he was actually like, yeah, we had rules like this because, we assumed that at some point someone would get some chump players who were crap to start fights with star players and get them all suspended. And they wouldn't care because it was some chump got suspended and some star player got suspended. So that's why they have rules like this. Meanwhile, the rule made bad things happen and it went against what they were trying to prevent. It makes no sense.
Oh, well. I find it kind of hilarious.
Yeah, it's pretty hilarious, but you think about it, when German board games, part of the reason they're so great is because there's never an instance where following the letter of the rules of the game goes against what's common sense.
Except in really bad games.
But that's a bad game. But
yeah.
My point is that...
Hellas.
Yes, but this is a way that you can tell a good game apart from a bad game, is that if you follow all the rules of the game to the letter, there will never be an instance where you say, that's bullshit, and then you go, no, well, there it is.
Yep.
It'll always be, oh, that makes perfect sense. Like, how many times do I say we sit around and we're playing a German board game when we argue like, well, this would make the most sense. It wouldn't make sense the other way. And 99% of the time, pretty much whenever it's a good game, whatever we say would make sense is what the rule ends up saying.
Granted, we don't own a lot of crappy games, and I'm sure there's some crappy games that have some nonsensical stuff.
But those are crappy games.
Yeah.
So, since my point is, basketball is a crappy game.
Oh. So, this morning, just as I was leaving for work, I hit the old F5 on Slashdot, and I saw a story about a judge ruling on a technology case, or a case that involved technology. It actually was a case about some quote-unquote terrorist inciting something. I didn't pay attention. I barely read the article because it doesn't matter. But apparently the judge didn't know and really had trouble understanding what a website was. And I thought, crap, the internet's going to explode about this, and I'm going to have to talk about it tonight. So here I am talking about it.
It's a British judge, by the way.
Yeah, I didn't even read the article.
An Albionic judge.
Yeah, I don't know what this Britain is you're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, last I heard, it was a colony of Rome. Oh! But now I assume a lot of you out there, oh yeah, now Rim and Scott are going to complain about how stupid this judge is and how fucked up the legal system is and about how every judge should know all about the internet and all about how technology works and be up with the times. And that's really not what I'm going to say.
Okay.
Because
we've all said that before.
Yeah, well, I say that about other things, but when it comes to a judge, asking them to now, see, I'm really divided on this issue, and I think I'll get into why I'm divided. On one hand, asking a judge to only be able to rule or consider cases where he is fully cognizant of all of the issues involved.
That's a little unrealistic, because that means that, some, super surgeon has to be, the judge at some malpractice suit, and you really want him to be surgery and
think
not
of this.
judging.
Say there's a case where, a whole bunch of pet food gets poisoned, and the witnesses are all describing what chemical got into the pet food and trying to make the case. Well, the judge isn't a biologist. He's not a chemist. He doesn't understand exactly what all this is. You show him the report of toxicology, and he won't know any more about it than this judge did about the website.
Yep.
And it'll have to be explained to him. So requiring or expecting judges to know everything about technology that they're going to have to be ruling on.
And also about law.
Yes. is really going to... There's no way we could rule on pretty much any case that would ever involve science or technology.
It's pretty unrealistic, because anyone who has the requisite knowledge to judge properly probably won't have the knowledge of the law, and anyone with knowledge of the law probably won't have knowledge of every single specialized thing out there. And we'd really either have a shortage of judges, or we'd have a lot of people with valuable skills using them to judge instead of use the skills themselves. Would you rather have a doctor doctoring or a doctor judging some doctors? I mean, there's not enough doctors to do everything.
Granted, the other side of this is that in the modern world, basic computer literacy is pretty much tantamount to literacy in total at this point.
Yes,
at least in the industrialized world.
Yes, while I would not expect, a judge to have to be have a degree in computer science, although that would be nice to judge computer cases at least. I should expect them to be able to, use a little Microsoft Word action and browse some websites, send some emails, send some IMs, know what MySpace is, because there's probably gonna be a lot of cases involving that. Understand, P2P and the basics, what my mom understands.
See, now the thing is, ideally, it shouldn't matter, because the way I see it, regardless of what the case is, the judge is just judging on the facts and the law and that sort of thing. So whenever there's a case where something that the judge doesn't understand comes up, I think it's just the duty of the lawyers and or their expert witnesses to explain it in suitable enough detail for the judge. Because, all right, let's say we get a judge who understands all these technology issues. All right, hurrah. Now he can deal with the case, fully knowing what these expert witnesses are talking about. I posit to you, Scott, what are the odds that even one of those jurors has one goddamn clue what they're talking about, regardless of what the judge knows?
Not much, because if someone, if you're a doctor who understands doctoring, you're not going to be a juror on a malpractice case. They're not going to let it happen.
Well, I mean, you all remember from my jury experiences where I was basically told that I am overqualified to be a juror and that I'll never serve on a jury.
Yes, but pretend it's not even a case with a jury. It's just a civil case. So it's just the judge.
Even then, the judge should be able to get from the expert witnesses and from the lawyers a suitable explanation of what is going on.
So unless the judge is unknowledgeable and all the expert witnesses are poor experts and the lawyers found poor expert witnesses because they're not too good at finding them. Yeah.
Or if the judge is stupid.
Yep.
There is the problem where what if your expert witnesses explain everything in perfect detail and the judge is just too dense to understand it?
Shouldn't be a judge. A judge has to be able to understand any expert witness.
What was the old quote? I think it was from Monty Python. It might have been from somewhere else, but it just comes to mind, and I think a few people probably posted it on Slashdot and Fark and all the places that talk about this. But, I wanted to be a judge, but the entrance exam was too tough, so I decided to become a miner. Unfortunately, when you're too old and stupid to be a miner, you can't be a miner anymore, while the opposite is true for judging. Now, I do point out that there is one further possible issue surrounding this whole thing, and that is that the judge might not be as dense as everyone seems to think. I didn't read the article, but I know that a lot of times when a concept is brought up in court, like say a website, the judge might have said he doesn't know what a website is very clearly in order to force the people involved in the trial to explain exactly what a website is for the purposes of this case. Because, the term website is kind of broad. To me, a website is like a site, and a web page is different. And what's the boundary between one website and another website? And is it the data in the database? Is it the server? Is it the content?
Yep.
Things like that. And also, maybe in case the jury was, possibly not the brightest bunch of people, the judge might have even been doing this solely for the benefit of the jury, so they would force the people to explain this for the benefit of them.
That is true. However, there weren't too many people paying attention to this case, I imagine. It's not like some high profile on the TV, case. So in order for someone to notice this and put it up on the internet to be like, oh my God, can you believe this? They probably would have had to been there and experience the dumbness.
Or they decided to write it up in the way that they did in order to get a bunch of digs.
Or that someone made it up. It's not true.
I wouldn't doubt it being made up, quite frankly.
Regardless, it's just another excuse to talk about judges. I choose you, ditto! Oh, shit. Wait.
Anyway, things of the day. So in keeping with our main bit tonight, I linked to one of those random crazy conspiracy nutjob videos. And while this isn't one of them, this is just a straight up nutjob conspiracy about how Freemasons and Mormons and whatever could secretly control the world from Bavaria or whatever with aliens in the pyramids. I don't know how people believe this shit, but I discovered when I found this that there is an entire subgenre on the internet of music videos set to Illuminati imagery, and they seem to all be...
Is this anything like your famous Born to Be Alive?
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure all of these people are trying to, quote-unquote, get the word out about the Illuminati.
Don't they know it's just a game made by Steve Jackson?
I don't think they do.
Do they not play the game?
I think they think the game is just a joke and the real Illuminati is waiting.
But the game! The game!
Well, I think the game may or may not have come after the term was coined.
Of course, but that's not the point. The point is that the Illuminati was real. The game wouldn't fly.
Maybe it would. Because you see, if the Illuminati were real and they didn't let the game fly, then everyone who tried to make the game fly would have known because there would have been some sort of influence. So instead, cleverly, the Illuminati acted like it didn't exist in order to let the game come out, in order to convince everyone to think that the Illuminati doesn't really exist when in fact it does.
I'm sure.
But it doesn't.
All right, we have an inside joke in the Front Row Crew. Because at some point in time, I'm a fan of arts, I guess. Certain arts. And, I kind of like statues. I like to go to museums and look at statues. And
this wasn't an inside joke. This was just proof that you're homosexual.
Yeah, okay, whatever. So, at one point in time, people were talking about something. I forget what the discussion was, but I was like, yeah, I'd like to have some art in my house. Maybe like one of those big statues of a naked Greek guy. Because they have statues of naked Greek guys, and a lot of them are pretty cool. And, of course, everyone took this to mean that, Scott likes naked Greek guys, gay.
Well, the thing is, it was I want a statue in the house. You know, like one of those big, naked Greek guys.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
And the room paused for a good 10 seconds while we all just stared at Scott, because that came out of nowhere.
It didn't really come out of nowhere. I think it was it wasn't a non sequitur.
The big naked Greek guys came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That is not what we were expecting.
Well, recently, because sculpture, I think, is a very unappreciated art form in modern times. Mostly, I think, because I'm mostly a fan, if you couldn't tell, of the realistic, kind of looks like people sculpture. You know, like when it's a statue, but from far away, it might be a person because it's so damn good. That's the kind of sculptures I like. But mostly nowadays, the sculptures you see are things like the Sentinel at RIT, which is just some sort of abstract mess of shapes and materials. And, you know, I'm not saying that's wrong or bad, but it's just not my preference. I don't like that kind of sculpture as much as the, you know, looks like a person made of one rock sculpture.
See, I remember when they built the Sentinel, and I wished at the time that instead they had built some sort of equivalent of the Colossus of Rhodes, some gigantic tiger over the entrance to RIT.
Yeah, we already had a little tiger. Just make that same thing, only standing up on its rear legs, maybe leaning on building 1 or something like that.
I think the problem...
Scratching building 1?
That would have been
cool.
great. I think the only reason they didn't was they calculated how many frat boys would die trying to paint the balls gold.
Well, all right. So, recently on Dig, an awesome link appeared that I appreciate very much. The link is 5 greatest sculptors of all time. And, well, most of them, 4 out of 5 of them, are sculptors from very long ago that sculpted mostly sculptures of people that are very realistic.
I'm gonna hazard a guess. Is Michelangelo in there?
He's number 2.
How about Leonardo, Raphael, Donatello, and Splinter?
Donatello is number 1, but none of the other Ninja Turtles have made the list.
I hate to say it, but I get the impression that the only reason the majority of people in the world even have heard of Michelangelo is because of the Ninja Turtles.
No, I think people would have heard of Michelangelo without the Ninja Turtles, but Donatello, Leonardo, and Raphael, well, Leonardo people would have known also. But I bet a lot of people don't know that Leonardo, Ninja Turtle, is Da Vinci. They wouldn't have mixed it up. I remember when I was a little kid, I knew Leonardo da Vinci was, and I knew the Ninja Turtles were named after, ancient Renaissance artists. But I didn't match up Leonardo the Turtle with Leonardo da Vinci. I thought there was some other Leonardo that was an artist.
Yeah, because Leonardo the Turtle wouldn't have had trouble with that plum cherry.
That's for sure.
Or plum tomato.
Yep. But yeah, I personally would not have known who Raphael or Donatello were without the Ninja Turtles.
But it's so obvious. Donatello was obviously that Renaissance guy with the bow staff.
Yep, obviously. So, number 3 is Gian Lorenzo Bernini, and I'm looking at his sculptures here, and they're pretty cool. He's got this one that looks like Zeus, or maybe it's, let's see, Rape of Proserpina is the name of the sculpture, but it doesn't look like a Rape of Proserpina to me. It looks like Zeus or King Triton. He's got a little crown going on. But the sculpture kind of freaked me out because I scrolled down quickly and I saw the leg on the sculpture and I thought it was a real leg. It even looks like it has hair on it and that it's skin colored. It's kind of scary.
Wait a minute. So you thought it was real because it had a muscly leg with skin colored hair on it?
Well, no, because you look at it and it looks like a real leg. Damn. Uh-huh. Number 4 is Rodin, who's the guy, or Rodin. I don't know how to say it, but he's the guy.
Rodin!
He's the guy who made The Thinker and the Hell's Gate and all that stuff. And the 5th one is Konstantin Brancusi, who's a more recent sculptor. He died in 1957. And I look at the 2 sculptures they display here as, I guess examples of his work. The second one is the Endless Column, which looks just kind of weird, and I don't really like it that much. But the first one is The Kiss, and it looks like it might be small. I can't really tell the size of it from the picture, but it's not realistic, but I kind of like it anyway. It's kind of cute.
So, I heard that the Bavarian Illuminati controls the economy of the United States.
Really?
And that the WTO is working with the UN and the EU to create a new world order, and they're going to use TACMARs to ship us all into tennis courts that are actually concentration camps.
All right.
Yeah, and it turns out that the people who killed Kennedy are still alive, but Kennedy is also still alive because there were 2 concurrent conspiracies. And in fact, Kennedy was shot so many times that the bullets hit each other inside and bounced out, thus he was okay.
Uh-huh.
So they replaced his brain with an alien brain, but that alien brain caused 9/11. Because you see, WTC-7 wouldn't have fallen, except for the All right, I can't go on anymore.
I couldn't even go on at all. I'm surprised you could keep it going for like as far as you did. I can't even come up with that shit. It's so dumb.
See, I could come up with realistic ones, but I really took pains not to in this case.
Yes. Today we're going to talk about conspiracy theories because, well, they're just something that pisses us off, and a lot of people believe in them, and we think those people are idiots.
Yep, it basically comes down to the fact that a lot of people, when something is somewhat unexplained, or not all the facts are known about a situation, and for whatever reason, they will latch onto this and fill in the unknown quantities with aliens and Freemasons. It's always aliens and Freemasons.
Yeah, and it's the same way that, like, when there's a hole in science, people fill it in with God. Well, when there's a hole in history, people always fill it in with aliens, Freemasons, and shadow governments and Illuminatis.
I mean, granted, like, look at the Kennedy assassination in the U.S. We don't know 100%, and we probably never will, unless, like, there's some magic footage we didn't know, or some great confession somewhere, that anyone was
Even
involved.
a great confession is probably a lie.
Yeah, because there have been a couple of semi-unbelievable confessions in the past.
Yep.
But while we won't ever really know, there's a big leap from saying there's still something fishy about that, or we don't know why that happened, to saying it was a conspiracy.
Yep. I mean, what's more believable? A guy named Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone and had a gun and shot the president driving in a car while the president was driving down the road. Or some crazy mafia, some crazy shadow government, and this guy and a bunch of, and the CIA all got together and made a crazy plot that somehow no one knew about and there's no record of whatsoever and no evidence of anywhere in the world. And they killed the president somehow and made it look like this guy did it. Which one of those is more likely?
I believe Occam's razor comes to mind.
Huh.
I think the worst one for me lately, the one that bothers me, well, actually,
The 9/11 one's bother me lately the most.
that one bothers me the most because it's on the internet a lot.
And a lot of people are believing it lately, which makes it even worse.
Yep. I think the worst thing is that Loose Change, I watched it and it was just stupid. And a bunch of it got refuted or straight up contradicted by science pretty much right away. And all the Loose Change people did was alter the video to remove the parts where they got owned.
And there was a great video I remember watching. Was it a thing of the day? It might have been. Where there were two scientists, like engineers, real scientists with relevant knowledge, and the two Loose Change guys. And Loose Change guys said some bullshit, and the engineer's just like, you're wrong, science. And then the Loose Change guys had like this laugh, like, oh, you're in on the conspiracy, man. You're totally conspiracy. You're all in on it. And I was like, whoa.
See,
Whoa.
if a conspiracy got to the point to where that many people were in on it, which basically, for Loose Change, includes the entire scientific community of the world,
Except for the one guy.
then it's not a conspiracy anymore. If everyone in the world has to be in on it but you best reconsider your idea of how the world works, because you're probably wrong.
Yeah, man. Geeknights, we're not on television and not millionaires because the whole world is against us. They got it planned. They want to keep the nerds down. They know we're too good for them. That's the only reason we have to settle for this shitty podcast.
Didn't all those shitty other webcomic artists in that documentary where Penny Arcade also kind of participated keep saying stuff like that?
Maybe. I think they were on the track a little bit, but I don't think they came out and said there's a giant conspiracy against webcomics. I think what they generally did is they're like, yeah, regular comics looks down on us, and it's not cool.
See, I got the impression that they were saying more that the media doesn't want us, like they try to take away all the possibility of independent artists getting out there. And then Penny Arcade was like...
That's not the way I see it. Penny Arcade is in newspapers and magazines. PvP is all over the place. Order the Stick is printing books.
Mega Tokyo is still popular.
Yeah, Mega Tokyo has a manga that's published in the bookstores and sells a lot. I don't know why, but I don't see that happening. Boasis just got put on comics.com.
Well, I think my favorite Loose Change bit recently was that not too long ago, it was in the national news, but a tanker full of gas flipped over and set on fire on a bridge and melted the steel support structure under the road.
Huh.
Now, I believe that one of the corest, deepest, most important assertions of these Loose Change crackpots was that you can't melt steel with a gas fire.
You can.
Even though the scientists have been saying that all along, but, no, I guess...
I wonder if these Loose Change guys ever went in their backyard with some gas and some steel and tried to set it on fire.
You know what? my guess is that the people who made Loose Change don't believe it and totally know exactly what they're doing and are doing this solely for the publicity, kicks, maybe some money. I'm sure they're going to make money off of
That
this.
sounds like a crazy conspiracy thing to me. I think they're just ignorant fools.
See, I don't
That's
know.
a much simpler explanation.
I think they're both equally simple because I think about the level of hoax that we could probably pull off if we were so inclined. And the only reason we don't is that we don't like hoaxes.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I'm pretty sure they actually believe it because of the way they acted in that one video, on that interview on TV.
Yeah, there's a good chance they're just idiots.
Yep.
But the one that bothers me a little more for some reason is the U.S. didn't go to the moon. That was all faked. They filmed it in a studio somewhere. In fact, the last couple of episodes of Penn's radio show, I didn't even bother listening to all of them because he let this crazy crackpot that I guess he's friends with talk about the moon conspiracy. And there was a semi-legitimate scientist trying to argue against him. And I realized at that point that you can't argue with these people because if you put forth a bad argument, they'll shoot you down. If you put forth a good argument, they'll either deflect by saying, oh, well, even if you're right about that, you can't explain that, blah, 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 blah. And for every one thing you stamp out, they've got 10 more waiting.
And you know what it is?
It's like ground pound down with these people.
Basically, the people are irrational, and if they see that there is some sort of possibility, right? They need, in order for them to change their crazy ideas and believe something that's obvious as opposed to something crazy, they need you to remove 100% of the doubt. They need you to remove 110% of the doubt, which is impossible. There needs to be no doubt whatsoever. And you know what? There's always at least a philosophical doubt. And I don't think that level of doubting, if the only doubt was philosophical doubt, these people would still believe their crazy conspiracy.
Yeah.
They basically believe what they want, or some fantasy crazy world that they've imagined in their heads because it makes sense to them, because they've completely ignored all evidence and reality. And they believe that, and they won't change their mind no matter what.
And yet, a lot of people fall for this bullshit.
Well, I can say that when I was a kid, I believed in stuff too. I thought there was aliens, and I thought that something up with that Kennedy assassination. Something.
Well, I will say this: I still think they're aliens in the sense that in all of
Mexicans?
in all of the existence that is out there, and all the billions and billions and billions of stars we have observed, the odds are that there is some form of what we might consider life somewhere out there.
The odds are that there's probably about one, maybe two, as far as the stars that we can see now.
Even
the
if
odds
there's more,
are, the
even if
odds
there's more,
are,
it doesn't matter because that's not the thing. These people aren't saying, yeah, there's life out there. They're saying, yeah, the aliens buzz Earth and the government knows and they abduct people.
Yeah, it's like that. Remember that video over the Phoenix sky that had like this blurry dot moving around?
How come it's always a blurry dot?
This is the thing. I found a way to remove basically all reasonable doubt that there are aliens. Find every conspiracy nut, ufologist, what they call themselves, but I don't like using agist.
I prefer the term.
I don't like calling anyone an agist or an agi if it's not a real science.
I prefer the term crackpot.
Crackpot is a good one. Go to Roswell, find all those crackpots, and you know what? Just give them HD video cameras. They sell them at Best Buy now for less than $1,000. And you know what? I think it's worth that price to give all these people HD video cameras. And that way they'll go home watching their HD footage and they won't see any little fuzzy dots or fuzzy cigar-shaped objects floating through the sky. They'll see an airplane, a bird, a reflective balloon that just some kid let go and fly away into the sky. I don't know, a false shooting star during the day. They'll see what the fuck it is, and they'll see that it's not a goddamn green man in a fucking UFO spinning around, abducting people with cows and shit.
Now, I will say that when I was a kid, I also was leaning toward believing a lot of this. And when I say a kid, I'm talking like first grade, second grade, although maybe up to third, fourth, maybe fifth grade. Funny how I stopped believing in God long before I stopped believing in UFOs and Kennedy conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Because they're a lot more plausible.
Yep.
But anyway, I blame, at least in terms of my childhood and a lot of the things I believed, or at least accounted for the possibility of, I blame Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah, I blame the Sci-Fi Channel mostly.
And Fate Magazine. Because my grandma...
Fate Magazine, you said?
My grandma...
I never heard of such a thing.
Oh my God. You want to have some fun? Read Fate Magazine.
Does it still exist?
Probably.
Let's search for it. Fate?
Fate. My grandma subscribed to it, and it was nothing but conspiracy theories, UFOs, and ghosts. And
Fate
psychic
magazine,
crystals.
true reports of the strange unknown.
Yeah, it's so god-awful, I can't even really talk about it. But when you're like in first grade and you're sitting at your grandma's house while she's telling you ghost stories and you're watching Unsolved Mysteries where they talk about the guy who had pictures of aliens, but then the fucking government came and stole it. And
One thing I remember seeing on TV that convinced me a lot was this guy had like this piece of metal like covered in glass. It was like a ring of metal with like a glass coating completely coating the whole thing. And he's like, this is 100% aluminum covered in glass. I found this at such crater somewhere on Earth. You can't make 100% aluminum unless you're in space. And I was like, as a kid, I was like, that seals the deal. There it is. How can you deny it? But reality, I didn't think that, oh, he's just lying and it's a piece of metal covered in glass and it's not 100% aluminum and he didn't find it in a crater.
Well,
and he's never done a proper metallurgical test on it and it's just a thing he made.
Yeah, what really bothers me is whenever the media or the press talk to these crackpots, it's rare that they will ever directly and openly question them about the obvious. They always do the opposite of begging the question. They'll let the begged question hang, and they'll ask, like, so how did you come to believe blah, blah, blah? So what do you say to your detractors? As opposed to asking the question I would have asked, which is, so how do you know that that is 100% aluminum?
Yeah.
How did you come to this conclusion? Did you test it somehow? Oh,
Are you lying?
I guess you didn't
Are
test
you lying?
it because
Are you lying?
it's in
Did
glass.
you just make this up?
The worst are the people who think that aliens abducted them, because there might have been a time where I would have had sympathy for these people that maybe, you know, they had some sort of sleep paralysis or something happened that's explainable, and then they went online and they saw these other crackpots and someone brainwashed them, they made a case. But no, I'm of the mind that if you think that aliens abducted you, I really have no recourse other than to laugh in your face until you leave or cry.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I would
I
do
don't even
too.
argue. It's like if someone said that their child was an indigo child. I wouldn't even try to argue. I wouldn't
Because
even.
it's basically hopeless.
I wouldn't even bother. I've lost hope for that person, and I would just laugh in their face continuously.
Yeah, I guess that's what it comes down to. All right, so let's do a little summary here. What is a conspiracy theory?
All right. Well, it's basically the opposite of Occam's razor. If you have a belief, well, I guess we should just go through all the different.
I think what it is that when there is a happening, usually a historical happening, and you don't know all the details, and you come up with some explanation that, while that explanation fits all the facts that you presently know, it is not a simple explanation. It is, in fact, a crazy explanation that makes lots and lots of assumptions and basically is completely crazy and unlikely. I think that's what a conspiracy theory is.
Yeah, you gotta go with Occam's razor here. And remember, Occam's razor doesn't say something so simple as the simplest solution is always the right one, as a lot of people boil it down to. It's more the idea that all other things being equal, generally, if you have two competing theories as to how something happened or how something works or how something is put together, the idea that requires fewer assumptions is more likely to be correct.
Yep.
And that is true.
It is absolutely true.
I mean,
let's say, like, I give you 3 pieces of evidence, right? Let's, here. I'm holding something, ready? The thing is, so you know what? It can fit in my hand. You know that it's red, and you know that it's hot, right? So, let's see here. It could be that I've just got a coal in my hand, and it's hot, and I'm being burned. That's pretty likely. It could be that I've got, I don't know, one of those, like, hand warmer things, and it's colored red. That makes sense. But no, it's actually the sun miniaturized so small that it fits in my hand inside a red capsule that keeps it from incinerating me, generating power for all the whole world, and I'm keeping it secret from everybody.
Yeah, I think that about sums it up.
Yeah.
And I've noticed a lot of common threads among these conspiracy theorists is that they all seem to be afraid of something that they call the New World Order. Or sometimes they'll tie in the WTO or World Bank. A lot of times they advocate the gold standard, or they talk about some sort of conspiracy involving money back in the day.
It's like anything that's secret. Like, if anyone keeps a secret, like, because the governments of the world and groups in the world need to keep secrets sometimes, and sometimes they don't and they do anyway, but I don't like it, they do it. Anything that's secret, conspiracy theorists will assume that it's the worst, craziest possible thing imaginable that's being kept secret. Oh, some general had a meeting, and whatever he talked about at that meeting was not released.
Well, let's see.
Likely, I would say he was probably just talking about some, like, Iraqi war strategy, and he doesn't want people to know.
But no, obviously,
he's talking about aliens.
Obviously, they were talking about the new alien craft.
He's talking to an alien about the alien craft that he was purchasing to use to fight the old ones in Antarctica.
Who keeps the metric system down? We do. We do.
All right, so how do you detect a conspiracy theory?
Well, one of the things that they seem to do a lot, particularly the ones who are a little more adept at avoiding direct questioning, is they'll always kind of deflect whenever you question them directly. They will always say things like, how should I know? I'm not a scientist, but still it makes you wonder. Or, yeah, but even if that's correct, you can't prove the blah. I think the moon one was the worst on Penn's show when he was talking. And the guy's saying, all right, here's some proof that we went to the moon. When they went to the moon, they left the lunar rovers up there, and they left a bunch of mirrors up there. In fact, you from your house can shine lasers at them and get reflections back.
Yep. You just gotta have really good aim.
And his answer was like, oh, well, we could have put those up there with an unmanned spacecraft. And no matter how
if you get a powerful enough telescope, you can see footprints up there, you know.
Yeah. Oh, we could have sent a robot up there that made the footprints.
Where's the robot?
Yeah.
It should be up there still then, shouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh, how come the things in this picture are exactly the same as the things on the moon? Like, he made this pattern of footprints in the video, and, well, the pattern of footprints that we look at with the telescope on the moon is the same.
And they'll always make a lot of assertions. Bang, bang, bang. Like, well, this is just proven in this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And they'll put forth all these things, like the shotgun of crazy ideas that all of which allow for their conspiracy to be true. And a lot of them are patently untrue. In fact, well, obviously, all of them are patently
usually
untrue.
I've noticed what is conspiracy theorists nowadays, like the clever ones, will be like, this and this and this and this and this and this. And like 75 to 80% of those will be true. And it's just like, but their whole crazy nut jobness relies on the 25% of untrue ones. Like, if any of those is shown to be untrue, which they are, but they believe in those untrue things, therefore their craziness holds up, and they refuse to believe that the assumptions are untrue, but they only argue above those assumptions because they've assumed them. They don't even think about going against them.
That's definitely a shade better from the ones I see, where they just throw a bunch of things out there, knowing that it takes a lot more time to debunk their craziness than it does for them to make up new craziness. So every time, once you've debunked them all, they just make up more. Like, and then if you debunk everything, they'll just say that you're part of the conspiracy. To which point, if someone ever said that to me, I would lean in very close and say, yes, I am. And if you speak a word of this to anyone, I'm going to have you killed.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. It's kind of like what I do whenever I argue with Christians, because it always comes down to...
Want to go do that to the guys down at Ground Zero?
I wonder if those guys are still there.
Oh, I'm pretty sure they're still there every day.
Next time I'm in Chinatown, I'm going to go, might have to mess with them.
I hate those guys so
Even
much.
better, why don't we make a bunch of fake documents and give them to them all hurriedly? Like, we'll get this briefcase, a beat-up briefcase, right?
Oh, my God.
And we'll lock
Oh, my God.
And we'll lock it. And we'll make a bunch of documents, and we'll put them all on our website right away. Like, all right, this is what we're going to seed these idiots with. We want you all to watch for them to hit the conspiracy sites. You know what?
That's a great idea.
We might have to do this.
We got to print up a bunch of fake government documents and then, like, get the manila envelope going on and the sunglasses and just, like, pass it to one of those guys.
Yep. Or even better, I could dress up in a suit and put on some dark glasses, and you, like, run by kind of like, and, like, and you, like, drop it and be like, you say something crazy, and then you just run away. So they're looking at it. And then I walk by with, with my hand in my ear, like all the people do in the movies, looking around like,
I hope that no conspiracy, none of those guys listen to this show.
I hope they do, because they're already pissed off for us making fun of them. I doubt they listen.
I also doubt they listen, but goddamn, that would be. We're gonna do that. I think
we are, because it's so easy to do. I mean,
the thing is, I don't have time to make up the fake government documents right now. I do have time to deliver the fake government documents, though. So if someone can make up fake government documents that like, if someone believed the documents were true, that they would also believe that, like, Bush made a plan with aliens to do 9/11, and there were actually no one on the planes, and all those people are secretly
Especially
abducted by aliens or something.
if the documents look like they're for someone else and they're kind of crumpled and old, maybe typewriter stuff, and especially...
No, they have to look like they were shredded and then taped together.
That's even better. Or if a bunch of stuff was redacted.
You got to make it look real, like it was actually a federal government document, and like if someone wanted to get rid of it and someone else rescued it somehow.
You know what would be best? If you took real government documents from the Freedom of Information Act and that had redacted...
You just use the same font and just type different things in them.
Take ones that are real and have redacted content, and then replace the redacted content with bullshit and then give it to them.
Oh, that's pretty hot.
That's great. But it's a lot like what I was saying, the argument I do with Christians, where eventually I'll just say, you know what? All right, I'll assume you're right. Because even if you're right, I would still side with Satan.
Dun, dun, dun.
Because I've freaked some people out with that argument. Because there's nothing they can say to that.
Yeah?
There's nothing they can say to me saying, fine, when your rapture comes, I'll be on the other side.
I'd rather serve in hell than... What is the line?
Scott,
what?
If you're going to say I'd rather serve in hell, I think you got it wrong.
I think I do have it wrong. What is it? It's like I'd rather rule in hell.
I would rather rule in hell than serve in heaven.
There you go.
Scott, what do you think that quote is actually from?
I don't know.
I think you'll find the answer kind of funny.
Simpson, Seinfeld?
No, way before that.
I don't know.
It's not what you think.
All right.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.